The fire's dying. Your hands are shaking so bad you can barely feed it another stick. Outside your shelter, it's so cold your spit freezes before it hits the ground. Modern survival experts say you've got about 3 hours left to live in these conditions. Yet somehow, in the winter of 1832, a guy named Hugh Glass survived not just one night like this, but months of it, with no Gore-Tex, no emergency beacon. Just animal skins, basic tools, and knowledge so valuable it might as well have been magic. Tonight we're diving into the forgotten winter survival skills that kept mountain men alive when everything around them was trying to kill them. Hey, if you're finding this helpful, a like or subscribe would mean a lot. And I'm always curious, where are you watching from? Had someone from Florida comment at midnight the other day. Love seeing where everyone's at. Okay, tonight it's mountain men in the 1830s Rockies. But before we go anywhere, get cozy. Like, actually cozy. Pillows good? Blanket situation handled? Perfect. Trust me on this one. Your eyes snap open to darkness. Not the gentle darkness of your bedroom. This is different. This is the pitch black of a winter night in the Rocky Mountains, 1832. The temperature outside your shelter has dropped to 40 below zero. 40 below zero. The cold is a presence, something alive that wants you dead. You can feel it searching for ways to reach you, probing for weakness. You're lying on a thick bed of pine boughs piled at least a foot high between two parallel logs. Not for comfort, though it's better than nothing, but because without this barrier between you and the frozen earth, you'd be dead by morning. The ground is a heat thief that never sleeps, ready to suck the warmth from your body at every point of contact. That's the first thing they taught me, you think, remembering the old trapper who took you under his wing last summer. Never, ever sleep directly on the ground in winter. It'll pull the heat right out of you faster than you can make it. That old man had survived 15 winters out here, his face a map of wrinkles and scars earned in this merciless landscape, half his left ear missing from frostbite. You wonder if you'll last half as long. Around you, the buffalo robe forms a protective cocoon. It's heavy, maybe 40 pounds of dense hair and hide, but worth every ounce. Each strand of woolly undercoat creates a tiny pocket of air, thousands upon thousands of them trapping your body heat. Unlike your sleeping bag at home with its high-tech synthetic fill, this robe came with a face attached just a few months ago. You can still smell the animal on it, a constant reminder that survival here means something dies so you can live. You shift slightly, feeling the familiar weight of your wool cap still firmly on your head. The old-timers say an uncovered head is basically a chimney for your body heat. Might as well open a hole in your buffalo robe, they joke, though nobody's really laughing. You've seen what happens when someone gets careless. Last winter, a young trapper named Harris woke up without his cap, somehow lost it in his sleep. By morning, his ears were white with frostbite. By spring, he was missing parts of both. No one made fun of him. They all knew it could have been worse. The shelter around you is minimal, a three-sided lean-to made of pine branches and covered with a tarp of sewn elk hides. The fourth side faces the fire, which has burned down to coals in the night. It's designed not for comfort, but as a shield against the 4 killers of cold. Yeah. That's how the mountain men think of it. Cold isn't just cold, it's a predator that attacks in 4 specific ways: conduction, convection, radiation, and evaporation. Fancy scientific terms the mountain men don't know, but man, do they understand the reality. Hold up, let me paint you a picture of what your day is going to be like, because in about 10 minutes you're going to have to leave the relative warmth of this buffalo robe and start the daily fight for survival all over again. And I promise you, it's nothing like camping in Yellowstone with your REI gear and a cooler full of beer. You're dreading what comes next. The first moments of the morning are always the worst, going from the marginal warmth of your buffalo robe into the biting cold. It's like jumping into an ice bath, except the ice bath is literally everywhere and everything. Morning, boys. Sun's almost thinking about showing up. The voice belongs to Mackenzie, the grizzled leader of your small trapping brigade. He's already up somehow, stoking the fire with practiced efficiency. You can hear the others groaning, no one eager to face what waits outside their robes. There are 6 of you in this winter camp, holed up in a valley protected from the worst of the wind by a ridge to the north and thick stands of pine. You chose this spot carefully back in November when the first heavy snows made trapping impossible. This wasn't just random, it was life or death strategy. Feet froze to your buffalo skin, Jenkins, Mackenzie calls out to the still motionless form a few feet away. Told you to sleep with your boots under your robe, didn't I? Jenkins' muffled curse makes the others chuckle. Humour is currency out here, sometimes the only thing that keeps a man going. In your head, you're screaming, just 5 more minutes in this warm cocoon. But you know better. Every minute wasted is daylight lost, and daylight is precious when surviving winter is your full-time job. With a deep breath, you steel yourself and throw back the buffalo robe in one decisive movement. The cold hits you like a physical blow, stealing your breath. Your body instantly tightens, muscles contracting against the assault. This moment, this exact moment, is when most modern people would give up. But you can't. There's no central heating to rescue you, no microwave to warm up some hot chocolate, just you versus 40 below. Not like your warm bed right now, where the worst thing you face is maybe a chilly bathroom floor for a few seconds before you can turn on a hot shower. Your buckskin shirt and pants feel stiff, almost frozen, despite having been under the robe with you. The leather crackles slightly as you move. These clothes aren't just a fashion choice, they're sophisticated survival technology, developed over generations of trial and bloodshed. The dense grain of the brain-tanned leather creates a barrier the wind can't penetrate, unlike modern breathable fabrics that can fail in extreme conditions. Remember, boys, Mackenzie often says, sweat is death out here. That's why you dress in layers, not just for warmth, but for moisture management. Your innermost layer is wool, nature's miracle fiber that keeps insulating even when damp. Over that, the buckskin, treated with bear grease to add water resistance. You can feel the slightly oily texture as you pull on your outer layer, a heavy wool capote made from a Hudson's Bay point blanket. These blankets are worth their weight in gold out here, literally a form of currency in the fur trade. The fire is your first priority now. Without it, nothing else matters. You reach for your fire-starting kit, what the mountain men call the Holy Trinity: flint, steel, and charcloth. Making fire quickly and reliably in any condition is the single most important survival skill in the mountains. Breakfast's gonna be a good one, boys, Mackenzie announces, already working with something in a cast-iron pot. Got some of that pemmican with berries in it. Pemmican, a mixture of dried meat, rendered fat, and sometimes berries, is the superfood of the mountains. A pound contains over 3,000 calories and will not spoil for years. It's dense, not particularly tasty to modern palates, but out here it's life itself. You watch as Jenkins finally emerges from his robe, cursing the cold with impressive creativity. His boots did indeed freeze overnight, left carelessly outside his sleeping area. Now he'll have to thaw them by the fire before he can put them on, a rookie mistake that could cost fingers or toes. You know, says Pearson, the oldest man in your group at nearly 45, I seen a fella try to put frozen boots on once. By the time we got to the next trading post, his feet were so infected the doctor took both below the knee. He spits into the fire. Course, that doctor was mostly just a fella who owned a saw. The others laugh, but you all know it's not really a joke. Out here, a minor mistake cascades quickly into disaster. There are no hospitals, no rescue helicopters. The mountain men have a saying, there ain't no such thing as a small mistake in winter. You've come to understand the brutal truth of this. The sky outside is beginning to lighten, a deep blue replacing the utter blackness. It's going to be a clear day, which means even colder temperatures, but at least no snow. You have work to do today. The winter may seem like downtime for trappers, but survival itself is a full-time job. Firewood needs gathering, meat needs hunting, repairs need making. The mountain man's winter isn't a time of rest, but of different work. The streams may be frozen, making beaver trapping impossible, but life continues in its relentless rhythm. So get this, Mackenzie says, between bites of pemmican. I was up near the Three Forks 2 winters back with old Bill Williams. Temperature dropped so low that when Bill tried to talk, his words froze in midair and fell to the ground. We had to thaw them by the fire to hear what he was saying. Everyone laughs, including you. The tall tales and impossible stories are part of the culture, a way to process the genuinely unbelievable conditions you all face daily. Sometimes the truth of mountain life is so harsh that only exaggeration can capture it. As you chew on the dense pemmican, your body craving the fat that will fuel your internal furnace, you notice the quiet that surrounds your camp. Not the peaceful quiet of a snowy forest, but the absolute stillness of a world too cold for sound. Nothing moves. Nothing makes noise. It's as if the cold has killed even the whisper of wind through pine needles. Gonna check the meat cache, announces Mackenzie, referring to the elevated platform where your group stores frozen game safe from predators. Thought I heard something nosing around last night. In the brutal calculus of winter survival, calories are currency, and your group has been carefully stockpiling them since the first snows. A grizzly or mountain lion raiding your cache could mean starvation before spring. You finish your pemmican and follow Mackenzie through the knee-deep snow, the cold burning your lungs with each breath. The thermometer that hangs from your pack, a prized possession in the brigade, shows 43 degrees below zero, and yet you're alive, functioning, working. The modern hiker found frozen in the wilderness had a pack full of high-tech gear, but lacked the knowledge that keeps you alive day after day in conditions that would send most people into panic. Gore-Tex, polyfill, and battery-powered warmers are no substitute for the deep, experiential understanding of cold that the mountain men developed. It's strange to think that while we've gained much with our technological advances, we've lost the intimate knowledge of survival that was once common. The mountain man didn't just visit the wilderness, he was of it, understanding its rhythms and dangers with the same intuitive grasp that city dwellers have of subway schedules and coffee shop locations. Cash looks good, Mackenzie reports, though his weathered face shows concern. But them tracks there. Wolf, big one, probably not alone. You nod, understanding the implications. Wolves normally avoid humans, but in the deepest part of winter, when game grows scarce, they get bold. Another threat to monitor, another element in the complex web of survival. Jenkins Pearson, you're on wood duty today, Mackenzie orders. Rest of you, we need to check the traps in the South Valley. Traps in winter? Yeah, even with streams frozen, mountain men would set traps for marten, fox, and other fur bearers that remain active. The work never stops because stopping means dying. As you prepare for the day's journey, strapping on snowshoes made of bent ash wood and rawhide webbing, you think about the transformation you've undergone. 8 months ago, you were a greenhorn from St. Louis, drawn by newspaper ads promising adventure and fortune in the mountains. Now, you can read the forest like a book, judging snow depth by the bend of branches and predicting weather changes by the smell of the air. This knowledge wasn't taught in any classroom. It was earned through frost-nipped fingers, through nights when you were sure you wouldn't see morning, through watching men stronger than you succumb to the environment's merciless judgment. The mountain man's education is written in the scars on his hands and the memories of friends lost to the cold. As your small party moves out of camp, following a game trail through the thick forest, you notice how differently each of you moves. The new men, like you, still waste energy, still sweat when they shouldn't. Mackenzie, 15 years in the mountains, moves with an economy that seems almost supernatural. Each step placed precisely, each movement calculated to preserve heat and energy. Hey, you see that? Mackenzie suddenly drops to a crouch, pointing ahead. About 50 yards away, partially obscured by pines, stands a bull elk, massive and majestic. Fresh meat, a prize beyond value in the deep winter. Winds in our favour, whispers Mackenzie. Harris, circle wide to flush him this way if he runs. The rest of you, spread out. The group moves with practiced precision, a hunting formation developed over countless winters. This is the mountain man's superpower. Not individual heroism, but collective knowledge, each man playing his role in the dance of survival. Your flintlock rifle is ready, the powder hopefully dry despite the cold. A single shot is all you'll get. Miss, and it's back to pemmican. Hit, and the whole camp eats well for days. The elk hasn't spotted you yet. You can see its breath clouding in the frigid air as it pours through snow, searching for anything edible beneath. Its ribs show slightly. Winter is hard on all creatures here. Wait, the wind shifts slightly. The elk's head snaps up, nostrils flaring. Now! Shouts Mackenzie, and 5 rifles fire almost as one. The elk stumbles, blood bright against the snow. It tries to run, but collapses after just a few strides. Clean shots, a quick death. In the ethical code of the mountains, this is as it should be. No wasted suffering, no wasted meat. As you approach the fallen animal, you feel the familiar mix of sadness and profound gratitude. This death means your life continues. The mountain men understand this exchange better than most. They are not separate from nature, but part of its cycle of life and death. Good shooting, boys. Mackenzie nods approvingly. Now the real work starts. The real work is butchering the elk where it fell, dividing its precious meat and fat before it can freeze solid. The temperature makes this a race against time. Hands exposed too long will frostbite, but the job must be done properly. You work quickly, your knife slicing through hide and muscle with practiced efficiency. 8 months ago, this task would have been impossible for you. Now your hands know what to do, even as they grow numb with cold. Don't waste that fat, reminds Pearson, watching you work. Fat's worth more than gold out here. He's right. In the extreme cold, your body burns calories at an astonishing rate just to maintain core temperature. The mountain man's diet is built around fat, the high-octane fuel that keeps the internal furnace burning. Modern nutritionists might be horrified by the amount of animal fat consumed daily, but without it, survival would be impossible. As you work, your mind wanders to the stories you've heard of men lost in winter, of poor decisions cascading into tragedy. Last year, 2 trappers from a different brigade tried to cross a high pass too late in the season. They were found in spring, frozen in their camp, having run out of food, waiting for a storm to pass. You're thinking too much, Mackenzie interrupts your thoughts. Thinking's a luxury for summer. Winter is for doing. He's right again. The mountain man's mindset is perhaps his most important survival tool. Present-focused, practical, unburdened by abstract worries. There's only now, only the next task that keeps death at bay for another day. The elk is butchered within an hour. Its meat divided among the party for carrying back to camp. Nothing is wasted. Organs, marrow, even the brain will be used. The hide will become new moccasins or repairs for your shelter. As you shoulder your portion and begin the trek back to camp, the sun finally crests the eastern ridge, throwing long shadows across the snow. Its light is dazzling but offers little warmth. Still, you feel a surge of energy with its appearance. You've survived another night. You've secured food. You're learning, adapting, becoming something new in this harshest of classrooms. The mountain man's war against cold continues, fought daily on 4 fronts, but unlike the unfortunate modern hiker found frozen with all his expensive gear, you're winning, not through technology but through knowledge paid for in blood and passed down by those who mastered this unforgiving land. Mackenzie stops suddenly, gazing at something in the distance. Following his gaze, you see what caught his attention, a lone wolf watching your party from atop a ridge, silhouetted against the morning sky. "Reckon he smells our elk," says Harris nervously. "Reckon he does?" agrees Mackenzie, calmly. "But he'll have to wait his turn. Way of the world up here." The wolf watches a moment longer, then disappears over the ridge, a reminder that you're not the only predator fighting for survival in these mountains. The balance is precarious, the margin for error non-existent. As your party continues toward camp, you think about how different this life is from what you imagined when you signed up in St. Louis. The newspaper ads promised adventure and fortune in beaver pelts. They didn't mention the constant dance with death, the knowledge written in frostbite scars, or the transformation that would remake you from the inside out. But despite the hardships, or perhaps because of them, there's a clarity to this existence that makes sense to you now. The mountain man's life strips away everything unnecessary, leaving only what matters: warmth, food, shelter, comrades. In a world of deadly simplicity, you found a strange kind of peace. The smoke from your camp's fire becomes visible through the trees, a beacon of relative safety in the wilderness. Another day in the mountains begins, a day of work, of survival, of the knowledge that keeps men alive when nature itself seems determined to kill them. Back at camp, the day settles into its rhythm. The elk meat is being processed, some sliced thin for jerky, other portions set aside for immediate eating. Fat is rendered in the single cast-iron pot the brigade shares. Nothing wasted, nothing taken for granted. Pearson approaches you, eyeing the tear in your buckskin shirt sleeve. It happened yesterday when you snagged it on a sharp branch. Seems minor, but out here, small problems grow into deadly ones. Better fix that before you head out again, he nods toward the damage. Wind will find that hole and freeze you solid from the inside out. You know he's right. The wind is the second killer, what mountain men call the thief that rides on air. Every gust that penetrates your clothing strips away the thin, warm layer your body works so hard to create. Got some sinew? You ask, already reaching for your possible bag, the buckskin pouch containing your essential survival tools. Better. Pearson grins, revealing his few remaining teeth. He pulls a scrap of brain-tanned leather from his own bag. From that mule deer last week, been saving it for someone who needs it. This small act of generosity touches you. In the mountains, giving someone repair material for their clothing might be the difference between life and death. It's not charity, it's survival through cooperation. I'll pay you back next deer, you promise, taking the precious scrap. Make sure you're alive for the next deer, Pearson chuckles, wandering back toward the fire. As you settle by your shelter to make the repair, Mackenzie joins you, his weathered face serious. Storm coming, he says without preamble. 3 days, maybe 4, big one. You glance at the clear blue sky overhead, confused. How can you tell? Pine saps running heavy on the south sides, birds flying lower than usual, that ache in my busted knee. He taps his left leg. Never wrong. In the world of the mountain man, weather prediction isn't about barometers or satellite imagery. It's about observations passed down through generations, patterns recognized through years of survival-dependent attention. We need to prepare, Mackenzie continues. More wood, more meat. If we can get it, check all the gear. A winter storm in the Rockies isn't just bad weather, it's a siege, a prolonged attack by cold, wind and snow that can trap men in their shelters for weeks. Preparation isn't optional. You nod, understanding the gravity. Your hands continue working on the tear in your buckskin shirt, pushing the bone awl through the tough material, stitching with the sinew thread you've dampened with saliva to make it pliable. The fringe on your buckskin isn't decorative, it's functional, providing ready-made repair material when needed. How long you been wearing those same clothes, Jenkins? Mackenzie calls out to the young trapper who's sorting through his gear nearby. Jenkins looks down at his buckskins, filthy from months of constant wear. Since rendezvous. Why? Because you smell worse than a buffalo wallow in August, Mackenzie says with a straight face, causing the others to erupt in laughter. Jenkins grins. Keeps the grizzlies away. Keeps everything away, someone else chimes in. The banter continues, but underneath it lies a serious truth. The mountain man's clothing system is as sophisticated as it is filthy. It's not static, it's alive, constantly adjusted to match activity levels and changing conditions. Reminds me of that greenhorn we had 2 winters back, Pearson says, stoking the fire. Remember him? City boy from Boston, showed up at rendezvous with a trunk full of cotton shirts. Poor bastard, Mackenzie nods, a rare hint of sympathy in his voice. Never stood a chance. What happened to him, you ask, though part of you already knows. Cotton kills, Mackenzie says simply. First hunting trip, he got caught in a sleet storm. Cotton soaked through in minutes. By the time we got back to camp, he couldn't even feel his arms. Next morning, the fever took him. You nod, understanding. The trapper's saying, cotton kills, isn't hyperbole. A cotton shirt, when wet, becomes a cold, clammy shroud that sucks the life from you. Cotton loses all insulating properties when damp and actually conducts heat away from the body. In the mountains, fabric choice isn't fashion. It's survival. That's why we use wool, Mackenzie continues, nodding toward your undershirt. Nature's miracle. Wool truly is remarkable. It can absorb up to 30% of its weight in water without feeling wet and retains 80% of its insulating properties even when soaked. For men who might get wet from snow, sweat, or fording streams, wool is life insurance. You finish repairing your buckskin shirt and hold it up to examine your work. The stitching isn't pretty, but it's strong. Buckskin itself is a marvel. The dense grain of brain-tanned leather creates a nearly impenetrable barrier against wind. You know, Jenkins says, joining the conversation, my pa was a tanner back in St. Louis, said the Indians used animal brains to tan hides because there's just enough brain in an animal to tan its own hide. That's true, nods Pearson. Mix the brains with water, work it into the hide, makes it soft as cloth but tough as iron. The tanning process is another piece of wilderness knowledge that separates life from death. The animal's brains mixed with water creates a supple yet tough material that flexes with movement while blocking wind. The leathers you'd buy in a city store wouldn't last a week out here. You slip your repaired shirt back on, then reach for your capote hanging near the fire. This heavy wool coat made from a Hudson's Bay point blanket is your final defense against the elements, your hard shell against the worst weather. The capote is a masterpiece of functional design, a long hooded coat with dense, oily wool that sheds snow and rain. The 4-point blanket it's made from would have cost nearly a month's wages back in St. Louis. Out here, its value can't be calculated in dollars, only in survival. Mackenzie watches you handle the capote with respect. Treat that better than you'd treat a wife, he advises. It'll be more faithful in keeping you warm. Got mine in trade from a flathead 4 years back, Harris adds, nodding to his own capote hanging nearby. Gave him my silver watch, 2 knives and a pound of tobacco. You overpaid, Jenkins teases. Harris shakes his head. That watch couldn't keep me warm. This can. The capote isn't just another piece of clothing. It's a portable shelter, a final line of defense against the weather. When every other layer has been penetrated, the capote can still keep you alive. We'd better get more firewood, Mackenzie announces, standing. Storm's coming. The camp shifts into action, preparing for the coming weather. You join Jenkins, heading toward the stand of deadwood you've been harvesting, each of you carrying an axe. See that? Jenkins points to a nearby pine. Its branches are bent with snow, but the trunk remains straight and strong. White pine. Burns hot, burns fast. Good for getting a fire started. And that one? You point to another tree with darker bark. Oak. Burns slow, burns steady, makes good coals for cooking and overnight. This is the language of wood, another essential piece of mountain knowledge. Different trees have different burning properties. Knowing which wood to use for which purpose is as important as knowing which plants are edible and which will kill you. As you gather fallen branches, Jenkins suddenly stops, looking at a tree about 50 yards away. Look at that standing deadwood, been dead about 2-3 years, bark starting to shed but still on. You follow his gaze. What about it? That's perfect firewood, even in a rainstorm, he explains. Been dead long enough to dry out, but the bark still sheds water, keeps the inside dry. This is the kind of knowledge that isn't written in any book. It's passed from man to man, learned through observation and experience, refined by the brutal teacher of necessity. What did you do before this? Jenkins asks as you both work. Back in civilization? Clerk in my father's store? You admit, somewhat embarrassed. It seems like a lifetime ago. Jenkins nods without judgment. I was a cobbler's apprentice, spent all day fixing fancy ladies' shoes. He laughs. Now look at me. You both glance down at your moccasins, handmade from buffalo hide. Your store-bought boots wore out within 2 months of mountain life. Like everything else from civilization, they weren't built for this world. You ever regret coming out here? You ask. Jenkins is quiet for a moment, considering. Sometimes, when it's cold enough to freeze the piss before it hits the ground. When I'm so hungry my stomach thinks my throat's been cut. He pauses. But then there's mornings when the sun hits the mountains just right. And it's like God's showing off just for you, you know? You do know. Despite the hardships, or perhaps because of them, there's a clarity to this life that you never found behind a counter in St. Louis. As you gather wood, the temperature begins to drop further, an almost imperceptible change that both of you notice simultaneously. The quality of the air shifts, becoming drier, sharper against your lungs. There's Mackenzie's storm, Jenkins mutters, glancing at the still blue sky. Feel that change? You nod. The mountain man develops senses that city dwellers never need. You can feel pressure changes, taste moisture shifts in the air, sense temperature drops before they register on any thermometer. By the time you return to camp, arms laden with firewood, the first hints of clouds are gathering on the northern horizon. Everyone works with silent urgency, preparing for what's coming. More wood is stacked, shelters are reinforced, the remaining elk meat is processed quickly. As evening approaches, you notice Mackenzie by his shelter doing something you've never seen before. He's mixing bear grease in a small tin cup, warming it by the fire until it becomes liquid. "What's that for?" you ask, curious. "Waterproofing," he replies, dipping a cloth into the grease and applying it to his buckskins in methodical circles. "Storm like this one coming, regular buckskin won't be enough. Gets wet, loses all insulating properties." "Becomes stiff as a board too," adds Pearson, who's doing the same with his own clothing. "This is another level of preparation you hadn't considered. Buckskin's fatal flaw is that when wet, it becomes heavy and useless as insulation. By treating it with bear fat or beaver grease, the mountain men create a semi-waterproof barrier that sheds light rain and snow. Here," Mackenzie offers you the small tin of grease. "Do your moccasins first, then your shirt." The grease has a strong animal smell that would be revolting in civilization. Out here, it's the scent of survival. You work it into your moccasins, watching as the leather darkens and becomes more supple. "Stuff some dry grass in those too when you sleep," Mackenzie advises. Insulation keeps your toes from freezing. Every piece of advice is practical, tested by generations of men who faced these conditions. There are no theories here, only what works and what kills you. As darkness falls, the temperature plummets further. The fire is built higher than usual, a calculated use of resources justified by the coming storm. The brigade gathers close, eating the fresh elk meat that won't keep as long as the jerky you're preparing. "My first winter out here," Mackenzie begins, staring into the fire, "was 1815. 18 years ago now. Got caught in a blizzard up near Yellowstone. No shelter, no fire, nothing but my clothes and my wits." The camp grows quiet. Mackenzie rarely speaks of his past. 3 days that storm lasted. Dug myself a snow cave, curled up like a hibernating bear. When it finally passed, my left foot was black with frostbite. Doctor at the trading post wanted to take it off. "But he didn't," Harris says, glancing at Mackenzie's very much intact feet. Mackenzie grins. "Met an old crow woman instead. She packed my foot in moss and some kind of root paste. Hurt worse than anything I ever felt, but I kept the foot." These stories aren't just entertainment, they're education, passing down survival knowledge wrapped in narrative. "Point is," Mackenzie continues, serious again, "you respect the cold. You prepare. You never think you've got it beat. The minute you get cocky is the minute you're dead." The wind picks up slightly, sending sparks spiraling from the fire. Everyone glances northward, where clouds now cover half the sky, dark and heavy with snow. "I'm checking the horses," Harris announces, standing. "I'll come," you offer, knowing the animals will need extra care before the storm. The small remuda of horses is picketed in a sheltered hollow nearby where trees break the wind and a tiny spring provides water that hasn't yet frozen. The animals are already restless, sensing the weather change. "They know what's coming better than we do," Harris says, adjusting blankets over the horses' backs. These aren't the sleek thoroughbreds of city stables, but tough mountain ponies, smaller, shaggier, able to survive on browse